How are you? Welcome back to another week of talking all about leather. Um, Last week we talked about how to buy leather and some of the things that you should be thinking about, like the top things you should be thinking about whenever you're making that leather purchase that can make it easier on you, so you feel more confident and you know that you're buying that right leather. If you've ever gone to any of the leather websites and been a little confused, go back and watch those videos. They're on the video from last week. It's on YouTube. It's on the Facebook page and group. It's also in the blog post from last week. I have a link there. But this week, we're talking about the beginner tools that are needed for traditional leatherworking, mainly because I hear the following statement a lot: leatherwork is an expensive hobby and I just don't have the budget for it. Now, believe me, I get it. The budget, that can be a tricky thing. Everybody has their own personal budget. And I was totally there about 7 years ago after I took my workshop with the last master leatherworker. I wanted to purchase and use those same very high quality tools and materials that we used in that class. We used really high quality tools and materials. And since a lot of them had a really high price tag, I actually chose to acquire my kit, my toolkit of the higher end tools slowly and over time. That way I was still able to work it into my budget. It just took me a little bit longer. And I knew for sure that my leatherworking obsession was here to stay. So I felt that it was best to get the best quality leatherworking tools that I could afford over a period of time, rather than get a bunch of sort of crappy low-end tools that are just going to break down the road right away. So, what tools you need for traditional leatherwork largely depends on what you're going to make. But at the most basic level, you're going to need a few basic tools, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I was making this blog post this week, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a little free guide to go along with this. So I made a top 5 traditional leatherworking tools guide. It has the links where you can buy the tools, and it also has links for the budget-friendly options for these tools that I'm going to go over. It has the costs listed, and it's just a little bit of an easier guide so that you can make your shopping and your purchasing, if you are buying tools, a little bit easier. So if you want to get that guide, you can click the link in the description if you're watching on Facebook, or you can just head to leatherbeast.com/leather tools guide. It's also in the blog post, which I just published. So if you're not sure, just go to my most recent blog post on Leather Beast, and it's right there within the post. You just enter in your information and I'll send that to you right away. Okay. I'm still sick, by the way, which totally sucks, but we're going to go through this, the list of the top 5 tools. So number 1 on the list is stitching chisels or pricking irons. So for those of you who are very new and you don't know, stitching chisels are like little forks with multiple tines, and these tools are necessary to use if you want to get those perfectly slanted stitches, like on my mouse pad right here, those perfectly slanted stitches that you see in traditional leatherwork where you're stitching by hand. Let me just grab my tools so I can show you too. This is my little toolbox. So, here we go. These are your stitching chisels. Stitching chisels are similar to the pricking irons. Sorry, I don't have those handy. But the stitching chisels actually make the hole that you stitch through. And then the difference between these and the pricking irons, just make a mark. They mark your stitch placement on your leather goods, but they don't really make that hole that goes all the way through. So stitching chisels, like I said, are a key element in creating that beautiful slanted stitch work. That's one of the signs of luxury leather goods. And one benefit of purchasing the chisels over the irons is that because the chisels actually make that hole, then you don't need to buy the diamond point awl, which is used to pierce the leather while you're stitching, and you use that with the pricking irons. So it just cuts down on one additional tool. I learned with the pricking irons from my master leather worker, and I'm glad I started with those. It was challenging, and I have made the switch to stitching chisels because they still produce a very beautiful stitch, and they're just a little bit easier to use. So that's what I teach as well, and that is what I use. So if you want to use the stitching chisels, the kind that I use are the Craft Tool Fine Diamond chisels. I use the 8-prong, and then I have the 2-prong to handle curves. And if you want to use pricking irons, I recommend the Verger Blanchard. This is a French company that's been manufacturing their hand tools since 1823. I love a company with some good history and the real old school companies that survive. So these guys are known for their high quality tools, and as a result of their hand forging methods they use in the manufacturing process, their tools are very nice. And for those, I use the number 10 and the number 2 sizes. So the cost of the craft tool stitching chisels for the 8-prong is about $28, and for the 2-prong it's about $27. So there's not really much price difference there, but a set of those will cost you right around $55 versus the Verger Blanchard, which is going to set you back for that set about $320. So bit of a price difference there. All right, moving on. Wing dividers. Let me show you my wing dividers. These are my wing dividers. Wing dividers are used to create the stitch mark guideline along the edge of your project. So before you're even stitching, this helps you with your stitch mark placement, and it is essential to use the wing dividers if you want very straight and even stitches that could be confused for machine stitches because they're so straight. You have to use the wing dividers. So this is just, I don't even think these are from Tandy. In the blog post I have quoted the Tandy leather wing dividers. They're about $18. These I got off of Amazon. They might have only been about $10. There's also the C.S. Osborne Company. This is another company with some history to it. It's an American family-owned company located in Jersey, and it's been operating since 1826. Crazy. 8th generation family-run business. And they have really amazing tools, and they're all about the quality and craftsmanship. And by the way, I'm kind of telling you about some of these companies just because some people might want to opt for these higher quality tools, because really, if you purchase these, a lot of these tools will last a lifetime, and it's something that you could pass down from generation to generation. I think that's kind of a cool thing. I know my grandfather's passed down tools to my father, so that's just something to think about. And it's awesome when there's a story behind the tool as well. Next up is, here it is. My third tool is Saddler's needles. Oh, it's so dirty. And this is another European company. These guys have been around since 1840, and they have a reputation for being one of the best needle makers in their field. John James Needles, this is a British company. They manufacture the straightest and best round-tipped Saddler's needles, specifically designed for leather hand sewing. This is what I used with my master leather worker in her workshop. And these Saddler's needles are what you want. You can get these directly on Amazon. You can get them on eBay too. I think you can also purchase them right from the company if you are overseas. And they're fairly inexpensive. These cost around $10 for 25 needles. So that's tool number 3. You really need a good set of needles, and needles make a huge difference in your sewing. You know, if the eye of the needle is too fat, it's not going to go through the hole easily, and it's going to make stitching a very difficult process. If the tip of the needle, see how I can do that with the needle? If the tip of the needle is super sharp, I would be piercing my finger right now and bleeding, and that really sharp needle would be piercing your thread, and you would be intertangling your threads often as you're stitching. So you actually want a bit of a blunt tip, a rounded tip, so that you are not running into those issues. Number 4, fil au chinois thread. Sorry, I should have put these out before I started my video, but that's okay. So this is one of my favorite threads. This is the Lynn Cable. This particular size is the 332, so it's a little bit fatter. It's really important to use the right kind of thread when you are creating beautiful rows of saddle stitching. And thread choice can make a huge difference in the quality of your work. Fil au Chinois is another French company. They've been around since 1827, and this is my favorite brand of waxed linen thread to use. This is what I recommend to my students. This is also what I used with my master leather worker. A couple benefits of using the linen thread. Linen thread does not stretch or give over time. It's very strong and durable, and due to the natural fibers and the way they are twisted together in the manufacturing process, it knots very well. It's almost like wire-like, and actually that is what it means. Lynn Cable, Fil au Chinois, Lynn Cable is Chinese wire thread. That's kind of the translation. Back in the 1800s, it was very popular. Yeah. A spool of this will run you anywhere from $24 to $37. The cost varies depending on the size of the thread, the diameter of the thread. So you're going to get more yardage out of a skinnier thread. There's also, though, smaller, if you wanted to just try it out without the cost on Amazon, you can find 50-meter little balls that cost only about $14 if you wanted to give it a shot. You didn't want to sink $30 into a spool of thread. Okay, guys, we are wrapping up. Number 5, the 5th top tool is your stitching clam or pony. Where's my stitching clam? I'm just going to get it. Hang on. This is my stitching clam. And this is it's a simple tool that just holds your work in place while you sew. So you just put your work in between the jaws, and that allows you to have both hands able to do the saddle stitch very easily. This kind is from Verger Blanchard. This is made by some very skilled woodworkers. It was a really beautiful tool. This is the same one that I used in my class, so I just had to have it. This will cost you about $250, but there is an alternative. A more budget-friendly version is the Stitching Pony. It's a great alternative. It also is a vise-like tool that holds your work for you while you stitch, but it's used sort of on the tabletop. I've seen people attach them to their bench, or you can actually sit on part of it to keep it right in front of you. They also have ones that I've seen recently that have this top head, but then right here, instead of something that rests on the floor, there's like a clamp that you can clamp to your desk, and then you can kind of adjust it that way. The Stitching Ponies that I saw on Amazon can cost you around $23, so it's a great budget-friendly option just to go that route. So as you can see, the costs for leatherworking tools have a huge range. Oh, we got a question. The benefits of it being so long. Well, it reaches the floor. So when you're stitching on a stool and you're kind of high up, it has to be long enough. Like if I'm sitting up here, it has to be long enough to reach from the floor up to the work. I wouldn't necessarily sit in this chair, this lower chair, using that. I would sit in like a higher stool. But there are ones that are shorter too. You can definitely get them that are shorter. So you have the high-end hand-forged European tools that'll last a lifetime and can be passed down to future generations, all the way to the decent options for beginners that are on a shoestring budget. There's really something for everyone. So I want to encourage you to get the best quality tools that your budget can buy, but don't let the cost of leather work stand in your way, because there are plenty of tools that you can substitute, plenty of budget-friendly tools that you can substitute. So again, if you want a copy of the free guide, the Traditional Leatherworking Tools free guide for the beginner, it includes the links for where to purchase, both on Amazon and some of these other sites. It includes the costs, and it also includes all of these budget-friendly options that I went over. You can click the link in the description on the Facebook page, or you can head to leather-tools-guide. You can also just click into the most recent blog post, and there is you'll find it right there. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching, and I'm going to sign off. Hope you have a fantastic day. Bye now. See you later.